This conference will now be recorded.
So underlying competency chapter. Every chapter requires you to create a bird's eye view. And now, how do we go about underlying? What is this underlying competency chapter? First of all, it contains or it describes the behaviors of a practitioner, not necessarily a business analyst. Anyone who is in the study, who is conducting some level of study of business, who is conducting some level of study of an enterprise, who is conducting some level of study of a department, right? It is a research discipline. Anyone who is part of a research discipline in an organization must have some competencies. Babcock Guide put together something called underlying, let's go here, underlying competency. Underlying competencies. And how did they create this? How did they create this chapter? What is the logic behind this chapter? The logic behind this chapter is 6 components. They added 6 components to this chapter. What are those 6 components? The first component is analytical thinking and problem solving. That's the first component of this chapter, right? It's very important to create this bird's eye view. First component. Second component of this chapter is behavioral skills, right? Behavioral skills. That's the second component of this chapter. The third component of this chapter is having the business knowledge, right? A business analyst is not a business analyst if they do not have the right business knowledge. If you do not have the business knowledge, how are you going to conduct the current state analysis? What kind of analysis are you going to perform? So a good business analyst, one of the important things that they do is they acquire business knowledge. Business knowledge, when I say business knowledge, does not mean the knowledge of industry you're part of or knowledge of business that you're part of. It means the knowledge, business knowledge around the area of your competency. For example, knowledge of methodology is also part of business knowledge. Industry knowledge, right? Business acumen that you develop with your experience is also business knowledge. So third is business knowledge. A good business analyst will have the skill of business knowledge, right? The fourth competency that a business analyst must demonstrate, and one of the most important competency, is communication skills. This is the baseline for all the work. And when we say communication skill, it's just not about the written skills. It's not just about the verbal or oral skills. It is also about our ability to understand people even when they don't say anything. Non-verbal skills, body language, understanding the body language, especially in this current world where teams are distributed or teams are not co-located. They are geographically dispersed. And look at this pandemic right now, all of us are working from home. Communication skills have become one of the most important skills at this time. The fifth component of this chapter is your interaction skills, or sometimes also called interpersonal skills. Interaction skills. What are these interaction skills that a business analyst should have? To be very honest, someone who calls themselves a business analyst, if they do not know how to facilitate, if they do not know how to negotiate, if they do not know how to resolve conflicts, and if they do not know how to help stakeholders make decisions, they are not business analysts, right? Shy people cannot be business analysts. I would not say that introverts cannot be business analysts, but people who do not speak cannot be business analysts. People who do not challenge the status quo cannot be business analysts. People who cannot ask probing questions to the stakeholders to uncover the unsaid requirements cannot be business analysts. And all those competencies come from your ability to interact with your stakeholders. And when we say interaction, it means your ability to facilitate. It means your ability to bring stakeholders together and resolve their conflicts. It means your ability to work with stakeholders and ensure that you can negotiate and create situations like win-win situations, not win-lose situation. John F. Kennedy said, do not ever fear to negotiate, right? Do not ever fear to negotiate, right? And why did he say that? The reason he said this is because whatever level in an organization you will work at, one of the important skills that you will develop or you must develop is your ability to negotiate. Negotiation, when you leave the negotiation table, one party should not be, should not feel that they have been neglected or they have not been heard or they have lost. Both parties should come out as winners, and this is what a business analyst should do. And this is one of their ability. Then this comes from their ability to interact. So we'll talk about that when we get there. Then let's move it here. There we go. And then number 6 is, number 6. Here. And number 6 is the knowledge of various tools and technology. When we say knowledge of various tools and technology, we mean things like office productivity tool, things like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Babok guide does not say Word, Excel, PowerPoint. They will say word processing tools, spreadsheets, your ability to present information, right? Some modeling tools. So tools and technology does not necessarily means the various technologies. It means as simple as things like office productivity tool that can increase your productivity, things like word processing, things like spreadsheets, then things like, and then some very specific tools for business analysis tools. For example, it could be Confluence. For example, it could be Jira. For example, it could be any other tool, top boss at CIBC, any other tool that you may use for requirement management. And finally, tools and technology also now with distributed team or geographically dispersed team includes tools such as communication tools, things that we use, for example, Skype for communicating, Microsoft Communicator, Link, IBM Same Time, all these different tools that we use. So if you look at underlying competency chapter, these are your 6 components. This is how I see this chapter. This is my bird's eye view of the chapter, but every component that is listed here has some other sections to it. So for example, analytical thinking and problem solving entails, number 1, creative thinking. So under analytical thinking and problem solving, one of the first aspects that we will cover is creative thinking. So when we are going over analytical thinking and problem solving, we'll look at creative thinking. After creative thinking, we'll talk about what is decision making. What is the role of a business analyst in decision making? Once we have gone over that, as part of analytical thinking and problem solving, we'll take a look at learning. Learning. A good business analyst is always learning. They're always learning. All analysis leads to learning, right? So they're learning, they are working with a system, and they are system thinking. They're getting these information from different sources, and they are creating a concept out of this, and they are doing conceptual thinking, conceptual analysis, conceptual thinking. And good business analysts always have the capability or competency of visual thinking. So as part of analytical thinking and problem solving, we will go over creative thinking, we'll go over decision making, we'll go over learning, we'll go over system thinking, we'll go over conceptual thinking, and we will go over visual thinking. So this is all analytical thinking. Now, behavioral thinking. What is behavioral thinking? Behavioral thinking entails things like, number one, ethics. Good business analysts will always demonstrate some level of moral behavior. They will align with ethics, the right things to do, right? They will never choose things that are unethical. One of the important aspects of ethics is transparency and integrity, right? Transparency and integrity. So ethics, as part of behavioral skills, we'll talk about a little bit about ethics. We'll talk about personal accountability. Personal accountability. Business analyst's role is accountability. Business analyst role is a role which requires us to be very responsible. And you know, accountability, if I talked about accountability, all organizations, all of us, wherever we are working as PMs, as leads, as business analysts, as research analysts, our organization, our leadership wants us to deliver results. They want us to deliver results. Personal accountability leads to delivering results. But when does result delivery take place? When we are accountable. Accountable people deliver the results. But when do you get accountable? You get accountable when you are committed. Commitment leads to accountability. When does someone become committed? Someone becomes committed when they have no fear of conflict. The organization has created a culture where your diversions, your opinions matter to organization, and you have no fear of conflict. But to get to fear of conflict, organization leadership works on forming trust with their people. So all business analysts, when they work with stakeholders, they must first form the adequate trust. Only when they have formed the trust is when stakeholders will feel free and they will present their mind. They will not withhold information. There will be no fear of conflicts. When there will be no fear of conflict, everyone who's working with you will be as committed as you are. When everyone is committed, there will be that level of accountability. And accountability is what is going to lead to results. Keep in mind, a good business analyst demonstrates personal accountability. Accountability, the stage is where result generation takes place, right? Personal accountability is where you start delivering quality to stakeholders. Stakeholders start recognizing you as someone who is delivering value to them, right? Responsible people. You have to become a very responsible resource in an organization. So personal accountability. Now look, this picture, trust, lack of fear of conflict, there's no fear of conflict, commitment, accountability, and results. Even Babcock says right here, Trustworthiness, behavioral skills where you become trustworthy. Trustworthiness, you become trustworthy. Behavioral skills such as you demonstrate organizational and personal management. Organizational and personal management. Very, very important. When we say personal management, it means a sponsor comes to you, asks you, hey, can you please give me that meeting minute that we had captured in the last meeting. It takes you 5 seconds to pull that out because you are personally very organized. One of your behavioral skills. Then the last but not the least is business analysts are very adaptable. They're very adaptable people. You can scale up, we can scale down depending on the environment we are working on. So when we go through the concept of behavioral skills today, we'll go over ethics, we'll go over personal accountability, we'll go over trustworthiness, organizational and personal management, and adaptability. Next is business knowledge. Business knowledge just does not entail business knowledge does not just entail industry knowledge. It's a good business analyst must at least have the industry knowledge. But look, you work in a project. Industry knowledge does not just mean the knowledge of your organization. Industry knowledge means all the competitive forces that shape your industry. Knowledge of all the competitive forces that shape your industry. Because if you do not have that knowledge of the competitive forces, the projects, the products, the services, the results that you will create, or you will help create, would not generate value because your competitor is moving towards direction A, you are moving towards direction C, and some other competitor is moving towards direction C and A. Now, there is this misalignment. So good business analysts are not only working on their project, but they're also keeping their eyes and ears and mind open. They're thinking about what else is happening in the industry. What are the competitive forces and how are they shaping my industry? So the product, service, and results that you're creating are always aligned with changes that are taking place in the market. So you're watching the external factors, industry knowledge as part of business knowledge. The other aspect that we'll cover today is the business acumen. Not everyone develops business acumen. Business analysts have the greatest opportunity to develop business acumen because you work with global leaders. And if you keep your mind open, you will hear these great business stories. You will hear, and you are part of, think about it like this, you're part of revolutionary products that banks are creating, that healthcare is creating right now. You're part of all this, but you are undermining, we all undermine what we are part of. Now, imagine these compelling stories, these business cases that our leadership continues to write, create, and we are part of that, right? We're part of all that, this huge story, but still we do not develop the business acumen. You're working with people who have such great business acumen, but we are not, because we're not keeping our mind open. We're not thinking as well as they are thinking. So a good business analyst develops business knowledge. To develop business knowledge, we should have industry knowledge, we should have business acumen, we should have our own organization's knowledge, not just industry knowledge, but also our own organizational knowledge. Our own organizational knowledge. We should organization, and we're not working at the level of entire organization, at the level of enterprise. There will be a time in your career when you will evolve to be part of this entire enterprise, right? You'll be part of the entire enterprise. But at this time, we're working as part of the organization, but we are working towards development of solution. A good business analyst must always have solution knowledge, right? So look, industry, business acumen, organizational knowledge, solution knowledge. Or we can say business acumen, then have industry knowledge. Within industry knowledge, have your organizational knowledge. Within organizational knowledge, understand the solution that you're part of and really know it well. But good business knowledge is not just about industry, organization, solution, or business acumen. It is also about knowledge of methodology, because it is the methodology that helps you develop products. Imagine you need to be in the market in next 2 months, but you have decided to use waterfall, and waterfall is not going to take you to the end state in next 13 months. So knowledge of methodology is extremely important. Now, next is, then we'll be covering something called, let's take a pen here. We are covering after that something called communication skills. So what is communication skill? Communication skill is your ability to speak, the spoken, your ability to share information, spoken, the skill, the spoken skill. Now, communication skills could be verbal, they could be non-verbal, they could be written. When I say non-verbal, it means the body language. Good business analysts do not just go on their rant of presentation if you're presenting something. You stop, you stall, you think, you look around, right? And you're constantly watching your stakeholders. Even when they are not saying anything, you're trying to understand their body language, and that's what is called non-verbal skills. Then written skills, of course, good business analysts should communicate and write well. For example, you're writing a business requirement document, you must follow that rule of 5 C's. The 5 C's as part of requirement analysis and design definition. Good technical writing always starts with a verb, right? And knowing such things, such basic rules of writing is very, very important. And finally, the last component of communication skills that we will cover today would be listening. Now, listening does not mean just hearing people. Listening, when this word listening is used as a competency of business analyst, we say active listening to understand, right? So I think it was Dave. I heard Dave say something like this in one of the sessions that he was conducting with me at City of Hamilton. He said something like, God gave us one mouth and 2 ears. Why so? He said, I think it was him. He said, the reason why God gave us one mouth and 2 ears is because God wants us to listen more. There is more benefit in listening over speaking. So good business analysts are great listener, active listening. They will listen to understand, but we never hesitate to present our point of view. Now remember this, listening, there no guide teaches us this. This comes from experience. Listening has 3 components to it. What are those 3 components of listening? The 3 components of listening are, number 1, focused listening. One, listening, beneficial listening, focused listening, and global listening. The 3 components of listening, we'll talk about them when we get there today. What are those 3 components of listening and why they are like that, right? What is global listening? What is focus? How do we evolve from these 3 stages? So listening. Then comes interaction skills. As part of interaction skills, we are going to cover number 1. As I said, everything about interaction is your ability to facilitate. Your ability to facilitate. Interaction skills. Number 2, leadership skills. Good business analysts also become great leader. They are communicating with leadership. They are indirectly in many ways, or the act of osmosis, right? Osmotic communication. Such a great phenomena. Osmosis is a great phenomena where if you leave a sponge, it starts absorbing water. Osmosis. So osmotic communication comes from that phenomena. What happens is when you're working, when you're sitting at work and you're hearing other people around you, maybe you're not listening to them, but unconsciously this information is going into your head. Leadership, you don't even realize, but you develop the quality of a leader because you're surrounded by leaders all the time. And this osmosis or osmotic communication is taking place continuously. So interaction skills entail facilitation, demonstration of leadership, which is inspiring people to do things that they thought they would never be able to do, right? Leadership. Then interaction skill also entail things like influencing, teamwork, working with other team members, not just working individually in a silo, but working with other team members, other stakeholders to create solutions, effective solutions to create, to develop common understanding, teamwork, working together with other team members and stakeholders. Teamwork, negotiation, and conflict resolution. And interaction skills, one of the very important interaction skills that a business analyst must demonstrate, must develop, is their ability to coach or teach. It used to be part of communication skill, but they have moved it from communication to interaction because communication not necessarily is teaching. Interaction, your ability to interact effectively is when true teaching can take place. And finally, business analysis would not be completed. This competency development of competency would not be completed if you do not develop knowledge of tools and techniques that are relevant to your industry. But as I said in the beginning, these underlying competencies do not necessarily mean that these are competencies of a business analyst. I personally feel these are competencies of anyone who is expected to deliver certain level of value in the organization. So tools and techniques, one of the tools and techniques is office productivity tools. Number one, office productivity tools. These tools are things like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but the standard does not like to use these Word, Excel, PowerPoint, because it becomes more like a product from Microsoft. They call it word processing tools. They call it spreadsheet management or information management. They will call it presentation tools. So all office productivity tool, right? Something that will lead us to deliver more value, office productivity. All of us, you do not need to be a business analyst to be using word processing tools. Such as presentation tools, such as tools such as spreadsheets, tools such as modeling tools. So office productivity tools, some other tools such as business analysis related tools, which are relevant to our profession right now. The tools or a couple of tools that are very relevant to our profession right now are Confluence and Jira. Along with that, some other modeling tools. Then the third and the final component is, because the teams have become geographically dispersed, or in other words, distributed, or because we are not co-located anymore and we work remotely, there is also need for communication management tools, such as the chat boxes that we use, such as Microsoft Teams that we use for presentations remotely. So communication, tools, and technology. So this is what this chapter is all about. This chapter is about these 6 components. What are those 6 components? The 6 components are analytical thinking and problem solving, behavioral skills, number 3, business knowledge, number 4, communication skills, number 5, interaction skills, and number 6, tools and technology. From CBAP exam standpoint, you can expect anywhere around 5 to 8 questions on the exam. Definitely 5, it can go up to 8 questions. So even if you give it a very simple kind of a read, it should be fine. Now keep this in mind. This is not related to business analysis, so there should be no trouble reading this chapter. It should come very naturally to you, right? There should be no trouble here. Oh, well, just it is one of the most, I personally feel it's a fun chapter to read. Now look, when you go for business analysis interview and someone said, tell me about some of the competencies that you have, or tell me about your strength. Gone are those days when you should say, my strengths are documentation. My strength lies in being detail oriented. My strength lies in this. The new business analyst, the modern business analyst says, my competencies are analytical thinking, problem solving, behavioral skills, business knowledge, communication skills, interaction skills such as facilitation, leadership, influencing, and teamwork, and knowledge of relevant tools and technology along with office productivity tools. Now look how you can apply knowledge in interviews. For some people, it's random read. For me, I visualize it very differently because I visualize it from application standpoint. So when you read a standard, there are 2 components to it. One is the shoe aspect. Shoe aspect for me is I want to get CBAP certified. Then is the ha aspect. I want to apply this now. I want to apply this. I want to break free. I want to apply this. And why wait to get CBAP certified to apply this? Look, such great knowledge. It's a great mind map. Even Babok does not give you a mind map like this, what we just created together right now, right? So mastery in learning lies in your ability to transcend and create alternative ways of teaching, of learning, of communicating, of interacting, right? So look at this mind map. Take a picture of this if you want, and use it and study it using this mind map, right? Rather than going randomly, you know now I've got 6 components that I need to study as part of this chapter. Every component has some sections, and I need to master each of these sections.